How are you, Dan?
Everything's cool, man. How are you?
I'm well. It's good to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks for shedding some light on our upcoming show.
Yeah, man. Excited to have you back here in Louisville. Let's do this. February 24th at the Palace.
Yeah.
So I guess you're touring still behind the newest record is called Lead Belly Baby, a collection of Lead Belly songs with a lot of amazing guests. And from what I gather, I mean, your interest in Lead Belly goes all the way back to the beginning of your musical curiosities, right?
Yeah, Lead Belly is my main man. He's the reason that I started playing guitar. And that was, I was a kid growing up in New Hampshire. I was 7 or 8 years old, and the librarian at this Concord Public Library recommended that I listen to Lead Belly because I told her that I wanted to you can check out records at the library. And she said, go over to the folk section, and I saw a Lead Belly record, and it caught my attention. He was such a dignified looking man in his suit and a bow tie with a 12-string guitar, looking straight ahead. Looked like he was looking right at me, and he had been dead for a couple decades at that point, but I feel like his legacy just gets stronger and stronger. But he's the cat.
It's interesting because that bluesman right there, it doesn't seem on the surface to be the most obvious candidate for something a kid would be drawn to and interested to.
Yeah, well, the thing about Lead Belly that a lot of people don't realize is that he played music for children a lot of the time. He was, I think he was really the most significant North American folk musician of the 20th century, in that he covered so much ground. He was an incredible blues musician, but that was only a part of what he did. And one of the other things he did was he played for young audiences. And in my opinion, he is I would call him the father of modern family music, because he played for children, but he didn't always play children's songs. He played songs that he also felt were important for children to hear. So he was offering a glimpse into the world outside for a lot of kids here in New York, particularly where he lived the last 15 years of his life. So he was playing in primarily white independent schools and really turning young people on to a life that they knew very little about, and sharing his experiences through his music. So as a kid, when I heard his music, there's just something about it that's so full of mystery and wonder, and that's what connected to me. I just felt like I was looking at a world I didn't even know existed.
With a lot of artists like this, I mean, you sort of get, in those old folk songs, they can sound, just fun and peppy on the surface, but there's usually that deeper meaning that's tied to historical context or in his case, sometimes, civil rights and social justice and things like that. Does that play into your choosing to do this as a family record, to choose his songs in that matter as well?
Absolutely. I mean, that's what I love about folk music is that, for example, when I started playing, so I got turned on to Lead Belly, the first song I learned how to play was, someone taught me, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. I've been playing that song my whole life. I love it. Never ever get tired of playing it. And I'm in the process of writing a songbook that's going to come out later this year for Quarto Publishers. And I've been doing a lot of research and really reading up about Swing Low, Sweet Chariot and the importance of this song in the lives of African American enslaved people and post-slavery. What this song really meant. I had no idea, To me, it was just an incredible song with some great lyrics and a highly singable melody. But as the deeper I go, the more I'm finding out. I'm thinking, I wish somebody had told me, that there were so many layers to this thing. And that's the way it is with so much folk music. Sometimes we can take it for granted. And, the other thing about the Lead Belly record for me is that I wanted to do this, but I also felt, as a white guy singing the music of a black musician, I wanted to, I had some questions about that too, and I had a great conversation with the Lead Belly family and estate, who have become my friends, and I wanted to get their blessing on it. And the thing that they said that really stuck with me was that they said that so often the prison narrative, the earlier part of Lead Belly's life, the prison narrative is what people will end up talking about. but he had such a strong emotional connection to young audiences. They were very happy that I was doing this record focusing on the music that he would sing for children, because it was important to him, but it's not talked about as much as other aspects of his life and career.
And I read I think you said you tried to make this record 3 times?
Yeah, it was just so important to me that I get it right, and that I wanted it to be something for the here and now, because I think that's what, in his day, Leadbelly was a modern folk singer, and he was really, his music, although we think of it as something from the past, while he was making it, was very up to date. And in some ways avant-garde, is so progressive and taking from so many sources. So I was thinking about what would Leadbelly's music be like if he were alive today. And, one of the things that occurred to me was that there would be, more layers of percussion, because New York has more layers of percussion right now. I live in a Caribbean neighborhood, and it's clear how much percussion plays into everything. But also, Leadbelly would be listening to hip hop. There's no doubt in my mind. He was so intrigued and so adept at wordplay, that he would definitely be listening to hip hop. So we wanted, I wanted layers of percussion, and I wanted hip hop, and it took me a minute to realize all this, so I kept starting it as if it were a more typical Dan Zanes and Friends record, and the record kept telling me, no, it needs to be something else.
And so you invite all these great, guests along the way. What's it like for them, artists that might not be used to, performing, writing, singing, whatever in this style? Do you find it's different from them in any way?
I've been collaborating since my first record. Suzanne Vega and Sheryl Crow were friends of mine during the making of my very first record back in 2000. And every record that I've had since has had guests on it, just incredible, from Philip Glass to the Blind Boys of Alabama to, Bob Weir, the Grateful Dead, or Debbie Harry, or, beautiful, beautiful guests on all these records. And what I've noticed over and over again is that the people who sign on enjoy the looseness of it, and recognizing that it's kind of loose, but it's artful at the same time. And that's, Leadbelly set that tone. That's loose and artful and sophisticated, is what I think Leadbelly did. And so, the people that were on this record, Chuck D being a great example. Chuck D knows, he's a historian in his own way. He really understands the roots and branches of American black music, and he knows the importance of Leadbelly. And so, he really, I don't think he needed to do a lot of thinking about it. The people that came in were not coming in to celebrate Dan Zanes. They were really coming in to celebrate Leadbelly. And Billy Bragg, another great example. He just published a book last year about skiffle music, which was sort of the precursor to the British invasion English rock music. And skiffle music Leadbelly was a foundation of skiffle music. So people would argue that if there wasn't Leadbelly, we might not have the Beatles today. So Billy Bragg was extremely keyed into that and excited to be a part of something that would honor him. So, I'm just so grateful. These guests that come on these records, and this one in particular, it's just, and it's beautiful, but I think the most interesting thing was that the rappers, they were the ones who really had to come up with a whole new set of lyrics, so they weren't coming in to sing the songs that they already knew, like Billy Bragg. They really had to create new lyrics to these songs and come up with some new rhymes, and that was really a beautiful process to see.
Yeah, and did you leave that all to them? Was there any direction that went with that?
No, just to remind people that it was an all ages record, and there's certain parameters come with that. There's obvious ones, and they really didn't even need to be said. Everybody would know. It's a kind of a no cursing zone. Got to keep it somewhat G-rated, but G-rated doesn't have to be watered down, though. This means you shift in a different direction. And no, man, I think everybody came into it with just, high level creativity and stepped right into the challenge, and it was very, very cool to watch.
I love listening to it, and another name I'd bring up, Valerie June. We're such big fans, and the two of you guys sound so good together on that song as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we met at we met at a Blind Boys show, but then we really got to hang out down in D.C. at the Kennedy Center a few years back when they did a big show to celebrate 125 years of Leadbelly, which is 125th birthday, and there's a big show. Robert Plant and Alison Krauss and Valerie was there, and that was kind of where the idea of this record came. And I spoke to the people at Folkways, and while we were all down there, and they said, "Yeah, let's do it." So, but Valerie's great. She's just, man, I'm so, I just feel so blessed to have her on this record. And she, like everybody, she came in really ready to honor the man and his music. And what a great starting point to have someone as soulful as her, but with the emotional commitment to the backstory.
Yeah. It's interesting that Leadbelly tribute led to so many things. I just had Robert Plant on my show last week, and he was talking about that was the show that led him to do the Alison Krauss duet record with Raising Sand.
Yeah. That was the one in Cleveland. That was about maybe 10, 12 years ago at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and we were there too.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it was a different
we saw that. And so we're in the elevator watching Robert Plant and Alison Krauss get to know each other, and you can see. But he's a great dude, because he's all about the music, and we've known him since the early 80s. He was a big fan of my old rock band, and that was when we first spoke with him, because he had our single on his jukebox. So every now and then we kind of cross paths, usually around Leadbelly stuff, and he's just, he shows up to celebrate the music, man, and he puts his heart into it. I have so much respect for that guy.
He's a champion. He really is, and he knows so much about it. He's such a deep well of knowledge. Like yourself, it's great talking with folks who really know the history and are passionate about it, and that comes out on this record as well.
Thank you.
Which, again, we're excited to see at the Louisville Palace, February 24th. There are certain terms that's new to me that you're really putting out there in the world. One is a sensory-friendly show. What is that?
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for asking. I appreciate it, because there's and this is something I can connect this to Leadbelly too, because Leadbelly and folk music is, to me, it's social music. It's community-based. It's community-making music. It's community-based music. It's music that we experience together, and that's what I love about singing for young people too, is the sense of togetherness and community. What happened was that a couple of years ago, I was invited to play a so-called sensory-friendly show down in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Basically, what sensory-friendly means is that the show itself is set up in order to be more comfortable for people who may have sensory issues. For example, kids on the autism spectrum. For example, but not limited to kids on the autism spectrum. And basically what it really means is that the sound isn't going to be crazy. It's not going to be overwhelmingly loud, which we do anyway. The lights aren't going to be totally dark, so it'll be possible there's enough light so that kids in the audience and people in the audience can move around safely. That we would do that anyway. And then the most important thing about it is that there's language around the show which says this is a sensory-friendly show. Come as you are. Everybody's welcome. All behaviors are welcome. What we find is that a lot of times families whose kids may not react in what we would call the typical manner to music, they can often feel uncomfortable going to shows where there's an expectation. We're going to sit quietly till the end of the song, then we're going to clap. But if my daughter doesn't do that, if she likes to stand up and maybe, even, say something or talk to the stage or just get up and walk around or walk up and down the aisles, and the ushers want her to sit down, well, we're not going to go to the show because it won't work for her, because, that she can't work within that framework. So sensory friendly is basically saying everybody's welcome. Come as you are. Any reactions to the music are okay, and we're all in this thing together. And that's there's a little more to it than that. We'll try and have a quiet space if kids may feel, or anyone who may feel overstimulated and they want to go and sit in a quiet space. There's accommodations made for that. So it's basically a way of because it's not saying the show is for the special needs communities. It's a way of saying this is a show for everybody, and we've considered the special needs communities in the planning. So it's really a way of just opening the door a little wider, and that has turned out to be such a beautiful thing. And the only reason, what I will say about Sensory Friendly is I believe that within the next 3 or 4 years, all children's programming and music, all of it will be sensory friendly. Yeah. Why wouldn't it be? Because we don't change anything we do on stage. We're doing our show. It's just a way of making conditions that are comfortable for more people, and we want that. So it's beautiful, man. Sensory Friendly is a beautiful, beautiful way to put on a show, and we're so grateful that the film festival and everybody who's working on this show recognizes that and is excited about it, and saying, yeah, let's bring Sensory Friendly to Louisville. Let's introduce this concept to our families here, and that's just something to celebrate right there.
That is beautiful. I really appreciate you doing that out there. And I don't have a special needs kid, but I do have a kid. He is 10 years old, and I quite remember just everything that you were talking about, being out and going to the live shows, even the kids' shows, and having that moment of going, oh no, how do you tell a new human being about social manners or something like that in that way? And it's really nice. It's really nice what you're doing.
Thank you. It's better for us, it's really better for us. And if we can help provide a space for families to come together, man, that's a beautiful thing. One analogy that I would say with Sensory Friendly is that in many ways, maybe it's even an old-fashioned concept, because if I think about the way Shakespeare's presented for the most part here in New York, you go into a theater, the lights go down, there's a hush that falls over the crowd, everybody's quiet, end of the first act, there'll be some applause. It's like that. It's a very rigid environment, and that's what we've gotten used to. But when these plays were first coming out, Shakespeare at the Globe Theater was really kind of, my understanding is it was a rowdy event. Mm-hmm. People are all crowded into that theater. They're talking back to the stage. They're drinking. They're laughing. They're talking to each other. It was, in a way, sensory friendly. It was come as you are, and let's all have this experience together. So I think, and on some level, we're kind of going back to that, and it makes so much sense. So the whole experience becomes a conversation.
And I got to say, it must be really interesting, to look out there and probably the babies that were made after the Del Fuego shows are now the ones bringing their babies to the shows.
Well, I hope you're right.
It's an interesting career you've marked out for yourself, and a really impressive one at that. And I appreciate what you're doing out there, Dan.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate you giving me a little time to talk about it, and we're really excited to come to Kentucky. And and I got married last month, and I make music with my wife, Claudia Eliaza, and she's in the group. And I feel like the music that I'm making today is better than anything I've ever made. So largely in part to the way it is when we play together. So there'll be 5 of us all together, but Claudia is one of them, and it's we're coming with a beautiful band, so I think you'll really like it.
Awesome, man. Well, I can't wait. We'll see you February 24th.
All right, we'll be playing some Lead Belly. We'll be playing some greatest hits of Dan Zanes, and it's going to be a blast, man.
All right, sounds good. Well, thanks for the call, and we'll see you then.
All right, thanks so much for having me. Have a great day.
You too. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye.